No, it's fine. I've had it waxed. And a big shout out to Alan Bertram, who won the Radio Flange Goblets Marrow Growers Festival last week at one of our road shows in a damn field in Stoke. I was the guy, if you were there, who was dressed entirely in blancmange, as my wife had discovered those letters from the podiatrist again and took the whole thing out of context. Alan went on to dance the night away with the Miss Nipples of Droitwich, who was only there as she had won too many glasses of Liebfraumilch and had staggered into the field by mistake after a rather entertaining hit-and-run incident on the motorway. The correct authorities, the Clay City Dollars, Stoke's foremost Bay City Rollers imitation band, were called, and the whole thing became a bit of a bash. I forget most of it, but I could have sworn there was a moment when some accountants made an animal pyramid out of some dwarf ponies and a hedgehog. But again, I did have rather a lot of punch, and by punch I do mean heroin. Anyway, let's get on with it, shall we? We can't stand around all day talking about how I choose to worship the Lord or what kind of underpants I had for breakfast. It's time for the After-Movie Diner, which this week comes from Marie and Juan's Nets, a delightful fishing-based establishment where the catch of the day is normally Marita Pring, the highly buxom and moderately accommodating lounge singer who's pretty good on the high notes, but don't ask for any Neil Sedaka or she'll cut a bitch. No, I'm sorry, I lunched with Ed Miliband today and it just won't stop doing that. Well, you would, wouldn't you? And welcome to yet another episode of the After Movie Diner, and we'll be getting right down to it like a bunch of ravenous animals just as soon as I've read out these announcements. First up, you will be able to hear me, that's me, on the Hold the Mayo podcast, a fantastic show hosted by Jay Mayo. see what he did there. Anyway, the podcast, Hold the Mayo podcast, is available on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, SoundCloud, and you can even follow him on Twitter at Hold the Mayo Pod. So please do listen to that. Jay gives a fantastic interview, does a fantastic show. I do suggest you all listen to that. Sometime co-host of the Diner and certainly a fan favorite here, Matt Farley behind Moten Media. He has been on the Hold the Mayo podcast. Fascinating and fantastic episode. Do check that one out. And I am appearing on it this week. In fact, it will be out the same time as this show. So once you've done listening to this, then you want more of me, because who wouldn't want more of me? Go over to Hold the Mayo Pod at Hold the Mayo Pod on Twitter, or Hold the Mayo Podcast .libsyn.com, or iTunes, Hold the Mayo Podcast, Spreaker, and Stitcher, and SoundCloud, and so on. 3 cheers to Jay Mayo for doing a fantastic show. Thank you, Jay. It was my pleasure to be on. And then also, over this last weekend, that's me again, I did an album. That's right, a 10-song album from blank page to finished product in under 48 hours. I had no ideas, no pre-thoughts, no songs, no lyrics, no nothing. Written down, just 10 tracks in under 48 hours. Is now available on SoundCloud and iTunes and Google Play, and will be on Spotify and Amazon and all those good places. It's called The Weekend Album by Miscellaneous Plumbing Fixtures, and you will be hearing a track off that album at the end of this show. Please do track it down and have a listen. Also available on Bandcamp, so that's iTunes, SoundCloud, Bandcamp, Vandalism, Google Play. Oh, just Miscellaneous Plumbing Fixtures, The Weekend Album, look it up, for goodness sake. Christ. And lastly, because Robert Long is such a fan of the mail jingle, he wrote us an email this week just so that he could hear this song. Here comes the postman, I wonder what he has for me. There's something in his big brown sack, I wonder what could it be. Well, I hope the bills it lacks and instead brings me some listener feedback, or maybe, just maybe, a big bag of crack. Oh, here comes the postman, I wonder what he has for me. And so that I would have to read this email out. Dear After Movie Diner, just a line to congratulate you for making over 150 wonderful episodes. Well, thank you, Robert. Thank you for so many hours of quality entertainment. Also, congrats to your creator, John Cross, for his recent employment. That's me. Thank you very much, Robert. May all of us enjoy many more years of this wonderful show. Well, yes, may you all enjoy several more years of this wonderful show. I have no plans to end it anytime soon, so yes, you will most likely continue to enjoy this show, and I will continue to put it out whether I enjoy it or not. Okay, so I think that's just about covered it all. Let me have a look. Oh no, wait a minute, he's dead. Oh, and that's not till next month. Okay, so yes, that's everything. Well, I guess we roll the trailer for the film and then get right on down to talking about it. Okay, roll trailer. Exciting. Don't know he does this every week.
Anything can happen when you're alone in the dark.
Are you afraid of the dark? Sometimes. Sort of fun. What was that? When I was a little kid, I was scared to death to be alone in the dark. I always knew that there was something that I couldn't see that wanted to get me. What's the matter now? Did you hear that? In the closet. Oh my God. Or outside the window. The worst thing of all is the thing under the bed. Billy? It isn't real.
This is a very serious situation.
I know that we're all a little on edge here tonight, but let's take it easy, okay? I mean, this is an old house. There are all kinds of sounds.
Starring Jack Palance, Donald Pleasance, Martin Landau, Dwight Schultz, Erland Van Lith. Alone in the Dark from New Line Cinema.
I'm going to have the Honey West Bison burger.
Honey West Bison?
Well done.
Deluxe?
No, just on its own. Yeah.
And I'm going to have the spaghetti bolognese, please.
Sure. You like soup or salad?
Salad, please, with ranch dressing.
Ranch?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Thanks, Beth. Cheers.
So hi, here we are, and welcome to yet another episode of the After Movie Diner. And we are here in the Green Kitchen on the Upper East Side, having just seen Alone in the Dark. Is that what it's called?
Alone in the Dark.
Alone in the Dark, featuring Jack Palance, Martin Landau, Donald Pleasance, and Dwight Schultz. Which is quite a roster.
That is quite a cast.
They
weren't going for the lookers.
No,
in this one.
but they were going for the actors.
They were going for the actors.
They each one of them knock it out of the park. But before we go on to that, so we watched it round at my colleague, who always joins me here in the diner, as well regular listeners will know, the wonderful James Wallace.
Hello,
sir.
Lovely to be here.
And thank you ever so much for giving up your apartment and your wonderful television to allow us to watch this movie.
It was my pleasure.
It was. We had
the wife's away.
Yeah. We had Rolos, M&Ms, and popcorn.
It was delicious. And caramel eggs.
Caramel eggs.
Which I didn't notice. I had a strand of caramel hanging from my chin for a good 10 minutes.
It was awesome. I quite liked it. It was like a very, very, very thin, low-pan beard from Big Trouble in Little China.
It was classy.
And I was put on this earth to get it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yes, Alone in the Dark. This was one I picked up a while ago now at one of those it's on sale kind of video shops closing down type job. Long time ago. I don't know when I picked this up. But
so this is in fact a powerful moment because there are so many DVDs in your collection that remain pure potential.
Oh, pure potential.
Pure potential.
In fact, listeners, you'll be glad to know that recently I was reorganizing my collection, or indeed the amount of my collection that I have currently in my new apartment. And because I don't have the full collection there, I just have the majority of it. And I've been reorganizing them recently, and there is so much potential in that collection that, I could do the show for another 5 years. I won't tell you how many DVDs I unwrapped. I felt rather bad about it. I think it's because when you...
Oh, wow, right, they were still in the plastic casing.
Yeah.
That's one of my favourite things to do as soon as I buy a DVD, is to take the plastic casing off. I don't know why.
No.
To remove all the stickers, take off the casing, and then it's a complete thing. I don't have to watch it.
Right.
But that's when it becomes complete.
There was a bike with one of those strobe lights.
Yeah.
So,
well, we're doing something a little bit... I guess we're doing like what we did last time. Like, we do try and go to the movies if there's something on.
There's been nothing on.
But we were hoping for the John Cusack, Jackie
Dragon's
Chan.
Blade.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's what we're looking forward to. Thank you.
We look for like weird and unusual things to go watch in the cinema. I mean, there have been exceptions. We went and saw Calvary and Pacific Rim and whatnot. But generally speaking, we like it to star Nicolas Cage or Christian Slater or somebody peculiar in a low-budget, weird movie, because it's fun to watch those in the cinema.
And I couldn't believe my luck that Cusack, Brody and Chan...
Right there.
Which, by the way, it's been like the biggest hit in China. It made like 55 million on its opening weekend in China.
So we have to go and watch it. So it will be coming out at some point, and when it does, we'll watch it.
And what's really funny is there's a trailer that's been released online that's been actually very popular, because I think a lot of the like geek bloggers have been sharing it around, going, just what is this madness?
Right.
And the other video they've released, the Chinese production house has released, is one of Chan like singing a jolly folk song, backed by like people on mad Chinese instruments. So I mean, it could have full potential. Also, have you seen the trailer for Nicolas Cage as a Crusader knight, starring with Hayden Christensen in like some bonkers, like the Crusader has to go to Asia movie? Have you seen the
We
trailer
have
for
to
this?
see that.
And at one point he goes, "I am the White Dragon." Like it's amazing. He does Walken, Shatner, and Cage all in one sentence. It's unbelievable.
We have to go see that.
And we have to go see it. And I forget what it's called, but the only thing that spoils it for me is Christensen. Like, put anyone else in there but Hayden Christensen, because he's blander than he's almost Blucas in his blandness. No, he is. He is almost.
No, because Blucas is kind of like. I don't know.
Does anyone remember our Blucas rants? I don't know if they do.
Well, anyway, the only thing that might spoil that is it doesn't get released in the cinema.
Right.
So we must keep an eye open for it, so it doesn't pass us by.
But if it doesn't get released in the cinema, we'll watch it on demand and do it anyway.
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Because that has to be one that we do.
Yeah, you're right. I'm more than happy with that.
Because that's a bonkers, should have been in the cinema thing.
Well, that is fun.
I just don't know what's happened. Like, since before Christmas, I think Birdman was the last movie that came out in the States that I was really interested in. Bear in mind, I saw Kingsman early on a previous screen.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Otherwise, I would be all about
That's
Kingsman
true. I
right
keep
now.
walking past the cinema and go, wow, there's really nothing
There's
on.
nothing on.
It's like Paddington.
There's been nothing on since before
American
Christmas.
Sniper. I could give less of a shit about American Sniper.
Because what
He
I used
shot some people from really far away.
Right. And he shot children. I don't know why everyone else is so shocked by this revelation.
There's that bit in Lethal Weapon where Riggs talks about there's only about 6 people in the world that could have made that shot. That's all I need to know about sniping.
Right
there.
Right.
Like, all there is that's interesting or, compelling is in that moment, and that's it. I don't need to see a whole movie. You're right.
But normally what I do on Christmas Day, for example, is I go in the movies, I buy like 3 or 4 tickets for different movies, and I just go from one screen to the next, having an incredibly cozy time, right?
Right.
Lots of munchies, smuggling some tea, have a nice time.
Love
So this year, I looked at the lineup and I was like, I can't. There's really nothing on. Even if I went and saw stuff I'm not interested in, there's just really nothing I'm interested in.
Yeah.
So I ended up going to my friend Doug's place and getting bitten by a dog. But
Bitten by a dog, not bitten by a dog.
no, bitten by a dog
Right.
at Doug's place.
Bitten by a dog.
I
at
was
Doug's
bitten by a dog at old Doug's place. I was bitten by a dog at old Doug's place. Yeah. So in light of that, we, as you said, we looked for the potential in my collection. I went through a few that I thought would be suitably bonkers.
I would like to see Fortress because
Yeah. Oh, do you know this?
because Christopher Lambert is like a bad tooth.
Do you know there's two things? It's hilarious. Looking through my collection, there's Fortress with Christopher Lambert, right? Which was a relatively well-known video rental when it came out.
Yeah.
And it's made by Stuart Gordon, and it has Jeffrey Combs, who's obviously from Reanimator and a lot of Gordon's work. Not the only Crazy Man Escapes from Space Prison movie that Combs is in, because he's in another movie called Spoiler, which has Brit Kicker and notorious bad actor Gary Daniels as the lead role, which Combs is also in. So a double bill, maybe, of Escape from Space Prison movies. We could do a triple bill and do Lockout, but that's always a bit much for us. I think a double bill might
I
be
think a
fun.
double book could do. The triple. Also, I don't think I can ever watch Lockout again because it was so disappointing. It was so nearly Pierce.
Right.
I really, really like Pierce, and I really like movies set in space, and I really like prison movies, and I really like movies produced by Luc Besson. All of these things should have gone together and made a film I was so looking forward to seeing, and I still have no idea how they let the two people that wrote and directed that film write and direct fucking anything.
Right.
They couldn't do either, so why would they let them do both? Do you know what I mean?
No.
Anyway,
That
but
seems to be
I think Alone in the Dark was a good choice because
a good
it was
choice.
a deeply weird movie.
Well, I only had to tell you that it had Donald Pleasance, Martin Landau, and Jack Palance in it, and I think you were hooked.
Yeah, absolutely. I was hooked.
And I would have to say, not one of those men disappointed.
No,
They all gave me exactly what I wanted.
in fact, slightly more.
Right. Than you were expecting.
Yeah.
Palance was unusually deep and emotional in certain
Yes, he
moments.
was. And Landau was unusually
Unhinged. and
unhinged.
crazy.
I mean, he's normally like on the edge of, on the edge of hinged. Do
You
know what I
always
mean?
worry that Landau is about to go
Fully unhinged.
fully unhinged.
But he's always like the quiet. Well, you know what? Why don't we do a brief
Do the synopsis, Chief. It's all your
plot recap? Okay, so it's very simple, really.
Right.
There's a lunatic asylum in upstate somewhere.
Right. It's sort of autumnal.
Upstate New York, I
Upstate
think.
New York, possibly
they-
Connecticut.
Because I think, yeah. So it's
It's very leafy and autumnal. And
peaceful, and the new.
definitely New England-y.
I think they refer to one of the New York hospitals that Dwight Schultz's character has come from. That's why I thought upstate.
Right, except that the other guy went to Philly. So I don't know, but anyway. Right.
So the story is basically it's a lunatic asylum in this, upstate. the
But it's like a
suburbs.
cozy liberal mollycoddling.
Right, so it's
kind of-
run by Dwight Schultz is the new doctor, and he turns up at lunatic asylum. And the lunatic asylum is run by a hippie, basically, who doesn't like to refer to the lunatics as lunatics or psychopaths or anything. He calls them voyagers. They're all on their own voyage, and he's worked very hard to get these people out of maximum security facilities into a more welcoming, nurturing environment. And there's 4 really bad people. And they're all
He's like the antithesis of Dr. Loomis, because this is played by Donald Pleasance.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, so the
Because Dr. Loomis
anti-Loomis
is all about lock them up, throw away the key, there's
Right.
no reaching them. Well, Michael in particular.
So there's 4 psychopaths. They're all on the 3rd floor, and they're all kept behind electric doors.
Right.
As soon as you find out that the whole system is powered by electricity, so the power goes out, they all escape, and the 4 of them have it in their head that, or rather, Jack Palance really.
Well, Jack Palance is
because
the
I have some
neurotic
interesting
schizophrenic.
things. Yeah, he's basically.
Paranoid
He's a
schizophrenic.
paranoid schizophrenic, but he's very charismatic, and he is, he's driven by the idea of like wrong and right, and the idea of having a mission. Seemingly, he's been cut adrift since the war, and so he tends to his paranoid delusions tend to focus on some mission that he needs to complete, and in this case it's take revenge on this new doctor, Dwight Schultz, for killing the old doctor.
Even though he didn't.
So the four of them proceed
Dwight Schultz
to...
did not kill the other.
No, he didn't, right. But they proceed to tool up and go after the doctor.
Right.
And that's the
There you
story. Thank you very much, that is delicious, thank you.
Oh, hang on.
Lovely, jubbly.
Oh, that looks great, mate. Thank you so much.
She's right here.
Thank you, lovely.
you so
Cheers,
much.
man.
Look at the size of that.
Yeah, look at my cheese and hamburger.
I'll be taking half of this home. I'll tell you that much right now. Binky. Right, go ahead.
Well,
Well, yeah, so anyway, I'll
so
take over.
that
'cause you
is
just stuck-
basically the plot.
Right, so yeah, they tool up and go after him. Meanwhile, the town is being, like, looted and pillaged because there's a blackout. That's the thing he didn't mention.
But the whole movie, here's the thing, right? It's a deeply strange movie, mostly in terms of tone.
Right.
There's no feeling that things happen at weird moments. Like, things either take longer than you think they will,
Right.
or they're much, much shorter. So when the blackout happens, you assume, especially like there's looting and there's pillaging and there's anarchy, you assume, oh, right, whatever's going to happen in this movie is going to take place tonight. It's
Right.
all alone in the dark, they've just escaped from prison.
There's been a blackout. Everyone's going
blackout.
crazy.
This is when you think it's going to happen.
Right.
And yet, right after they tool up in this mall, that like after an hour of a blackout, it has been torn to pieces.
Yeah, literally this strip mall has been demolished within 5 minutes by people.
Right. And
Seemingly looting cardboard stage props, because at one point a man runs by with some painted cardboard trees and a sunflower for reasons no need. It's almost like he ran into a shop. There was literally nothing left. No
Well, that's
TVs, no clothes, no nothing. And he just went, oh, I'll take the sunflower, you know.
there's a lot of references in the movie to like everyday madnesses. Like I think there's this idea, there's a certain sympathy, and this is what I wanted to get to. The movie has actually, I think, a lot of sympathy for Pleasance's point of view.
Right.
Because I think he helped all of the mad people except for, well, to a certain extent actually, he helped all of the mad people except for Landau, who, right at the beginning, there's a dream sequence, because the whole movie opens up with an incredibly peculiar dream sequence. It's very
One
cool.
of the best opening shots of the movie ever.
Yeah.
Which is a proper old school chrome diner in the snow called Mom's, and with Landau in like a proper old suit, coat and hat, shuffling towards the diner. It's great.
And he walks into the diner, and the whole thing's very strange and full of religious imagery. Like he asks for the usual, he gets served this big fish. Pleasance is working this kitchen that's like hell, basically. It's in flames.
Pleasant's wearing like one of those old 50s
But you know what was cool?
Paper hats.
But no, you know what was cool? When it first happened, there was like this twangy country music in the background.
Right.
And then Pleasance starts to speak, but you don't see his character. And I don't know about you, but for the first 10 seconds, I thought it was Johnny Cash.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because of the way that Pleasance was speaking in this
Right.
really deep, and it was religious verse and this like twangy country music. And I thought it was like a Johnny Cash song or something,
Right.
but it wasn't. It was Pleasance. And anyway, it's all like deeply beginning weird. But it ends with Pleasance. The nightmare ends with Pleasance chopping him in half.
Right.
Stringing him up and chopping him in half. And later on in the movie, when Landau's going all peculiar, Pleasance calms him down by whispering something in his ear, and the new doctor says, "Hey, how did you get him to calm down?" He says, "I told him that I would string him up and chop him in half." And there's a bit of ambiguity there. It's like, well, does he dream about it because Pleasance has threatened this before,
Right.
Or does Pleasance threaten it because he knows that Landau dreams about it?
Right. Okay.
And when Landau goes after Pleasance, he says, "Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord." So there's an idea of him taking revenge
For being sliced in half all those
for being
times.
sliced in half all those
Right.
times.
Okay. At its core, the movie is set up and to some extent plays out in terms of actions like a slasher movie, and instead of there being a Jason or a Michael Myers or a Freddy or whatever, it's these 3 or 4.
Isn't that like quite common in like late 70s, early 80s? There's lots of movies where a man or men escape from lunatic asylum and cause havoc.
Well, I mean,
you know what I mean? The
key one that this, obviously, because of Pleasance is in it, the key one that this brings to mind is always Halloween.
Right.
Because, of course, there's that great asylum sequence at the beginning with them all shuffling out on the lawn and all that. And like I say, Loomis is the psychiatrist, like on the tail or on the trail rather, of Michael. There is the town that dreaded sundown, which is a horribly uneven movie, which I believe was a TV movie that has, like, on one hand this kind of Sergeant Bilko slapstick cop, and on the other hand, like, really crazy slasher sequences. It doesn't fit at all, really. And that's like an escaped lunatic who wears like a bag on his head. It's where Jason gets his look from in part 2 when he's wearing like the bag.
I always had the impression that there was a popular like grindhouse genre of escaped men from lunatic asylum.
Yeah, it crops up from time to time, but I can't think of many off the top of my head in terms of like
maybe
iconic.
you may be right. Maybe it's just like single killer. Maybe it's just a thing.
But what I'm saying is,
sorry,
it takes a slasher premise,
right?
And certainly the kills are very set up like a slasher thing, with a few being jump cuts and a few just being, there's someone I want to kill, I'm going to go kill them. But it's done. I guess it's an attempt to do a slasher, but in a more sort of realistic way.
Yeah.
But something happened, and I don't know what it was. I don't know whether it's in the scripting, where they thought, you know what, we would never make this fly if we tried to explain everything. So let's script this, leaving huge fucking chunks out of it, because, you know, it's a horror movie, and we just want them to get out of prison, out of the asylum, and we just want them to go kill people, and blah blah blah.
There are like huge swathes of time.
Time scale, whatever. Or they made a more in-depth movie,
and cut sequences.
And Robert Shea looked at it and went, "Nah, we need this pacey as fuck. We need to get
because it does drag in parts.
Get this out." Well, what's so annoying? The thing that was frustrating me watching it is because the escaped criminals are Landau and Palance, and even like the big fat lumbering molester guy is like kind of fun to watch in a sort of it's bonkers people on the loose. At one point when they're driving around in the panel van, it's almost like the movie Dream Team, but the fact that they're all actually psychotic as opposed to like wacky crazy people. So there was a moment where they were chasing a postman on a bike, where it was literally like, because in Dream Team you have like Stephen Furst is like the fat, almost monosyllabic, where he only talks in baseball terms. And then you've got Keaton, who's like the wiry-haired madman. And then you've got like the older
who was in the army? Wasn't
played by
Keaton in the army?
Well, that's his lie.
Oh, right.
And then you have Christopher Lloyd, who's like. And if you looked at like Palance, Landau, and the fat guy, it's like
there was like a preacher.
Yeah. So it was kind of like Dream Team. So there was a moment there where it's like Dream Team, but like with actual stakes, you know. That I was quite enjoying it, but in order to sort of establish essentially who's going to end up trapped in the house, the Dwight Schultz's wife and his little daughter and the babysitter and all these characters that are kind of going to come into play in the third act, and his sister shows up, who's had a breakdown and is a bit like left wing and revolutionary, reactionary. To establish all this, just as you're kind of enjoying, and maybe enjoying is the wrong word, but just as you're kind of getting into the, oh my god, like they're killing people in really fun, crazy ways, it immediately then cuts back to like a breakfast scene or to like an afternoon scene, whatever, and it just doesn't, because it's not done artfully enough, it's just a little sort of jarring and a little like, oh okay, we've got to sit through this
and thinking back on it, there wasn't nearly, despite the fact that it goes Palance, Pleasance, Landau, like on the cast at the beginning.
Right.
There's hardly any Palance in it.
But that's contracted. That's just like he's the biggest name in it at that time.
No, I understand what you're saying, but he's also like even just for his character, he's hardly in the movie.
Right, but again, like, considering you have Pleasance, Palance and Landau, they were all in it far more than I thought they would be. So while I do agree with you...
Oh, yes, I suppose so.
His most notable absence is during the final siege.
Yeah.
Because basically the movie breaks down as this. It ends up with the Doctor and everybody all trapped in their big New England home, basically being set upon in various different ways by a unseen Landau, Palance, and a fat guy.
Yeah, a fat guy.
Whatever his name was. He was never given a name. And, you know, it plays out a bit straw dogsy at a certain point.
Yeah.
Where Dwight Schultz has to kind of take back the night, as it were. Because it means you don't have to have Palance on set. You can just have crossbows being fired into the windows. You don't actually have to see Palance do
Good
it.
point, yeah.
And even Landau doesn't come shuffling out until the very end. The best thing you can say for it is that they used their star power judiciously. They were in it just enough.
Yeah, okay.
Considering they probably only had them on set for like 3 or 4 days, if that. Like, the thing I found incredible was like when Pleasance did all his Halloween movies, he's on set for maybe 2 or 3 days, each of those movies. Yet he is, especially in the first one, he seems to be throughout the movie. Like Loomis, by the time you get to the fourth one, is like a main character, but he still only did 2 or 3 days on set. So that's what I mean, is like they're showing up for nothing. Like I think Pleasance made like 20 grand or something for Halloween. Like he really, in terms of acting, he's not making anything, but he's only doing 2 or 3 days work. But if you're a good director or you're a good whatever, you put him throughout the movie so that it seems like he is a recurring character, you know. Now, Halloween is decidedly helped by Laurie Strode being an actual, you know, enigmatic or charismatic figure that you want to follow and you care for and you want her to survive. So therefore, while you're watching her being terrorized by Michael, you're not going, well, where's Dr. Loomis? Because you're just engrossed in what she's doing. But the problem with this is, the moment it cuts to... Because Dwight Schultz isn't around that much either. There's a whole swathe where he's at the lunatic asylum cleaning up the next morning, and it's just the babysitter and the wife and all the rest of it. And while the actresses are fine, you don't care, because you were like, where's Palance, right? So every time it cuts back to them, there's naturally a lag, because there's like a charisma vacuum. Like immediately
there was a weird thing
entertained.
with the mood as well. There was a weird thing where you'd be getting a bit bored, or at least I was. I'd be getting a bit bored after like 10, 15 minutes, because like nothing would really be happening. And then something like indescribably menacing would happen. Right. You know? And freaky, and like, oh wow, this is such a weird... Like, we were watching it, both of us, for the first 45 minutes. Every now and then going, this is so weird.
Right. And I'll tell you why. It's because it's both conventional and plays with conventions.
Right. No, like I say.
Which I don't know, by the way. I don't know if that's someone genuinely playing with conventions of slasher films, horror films, blah, 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 blah. Or if it's just someone who's slightly inept and therefore is doing it the way he's doing it.
No.
And this is the point I wanted to come back to with the script. Was chunks taken out of the script? Or, sorry, was the script written intentionally vague? Or was chunks taken out later during editing?
I don't know, but I will say, I think it's deliberate, because there was a running gag, almost like predating Scream,
right?
Of the only one that knew what to do was the little girl. And she kept making like smart aleck comments and wisecrack. Like the wisecracking character was the daughter, and then right at the end, when one of the characters is being strangled by one of the killers, and like Dwight was like trying to pull him off her. And me and Crossy go, just hit him over the head, stab him. And then the character that holds up a knife and hands it to the mother, so like, just use the goddamn knife, was the little girl. Right. So I think there was a deliberate playing with the idea of conventions, that there's only one person who knew what was going on.
And also, let's be fair, this is produced by Robert Shea, who ran New Line. And obviously New Line made its name on the back of 80s horrors, Nightmare on Elm Street. They bought Evil Dead for distribution, various other things. So, now they're known for like The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings movies, because obviously that's their big success now. But back in the day, it was Freddy and then later Jason. And so, and also I've got a feeling the little kid was his daughter. I've got a feeling she was. So there may be like a big hand in Shay going, yeah, give her that line, you know.
No, I don't think. No, there was a very. She had all the wisecracks, and there was a thing.
Also,
the thing with the knife at the end.
Well,
It made me think they knew what they were doing with the conventions.
And also there was that cute bit where she was sat on the bed with Schultz's sister, who's a little bit crazy, as we know. She had a breakdown, and she's talking about how she can't be alone in the dark, and how she was worried there was stuff under the bed, and the little girl's like, what would be under the bed? Like, the little girl like just doesn't. And it was kind of a nice switch. I see what you're saying now. Yeah. It was a nice switch.
There was the thing, I'm just saying,
she was the most clued in.
Right, and I'm not saying that necessarily means, oh, what an amazing script, but in terms of answering your question, did they know that they were playing the conventions? I think, yeah, they did.
But,
and I think one of the things that I liked about it the most was, actually, I think that, because, there wasn't like a cop character going, you goddamn hippie psychiatrist, you should have locked them up, blah, blah. There was none of that.
Although when cops did show up, they were amazing.
They were amazing. They were like, all they were missing was like donuts and cups of coffee.
Yeah, they were all overweight. They all had little pork pie hats on. They all looked like they had just stepped out of a 1960s TV serial.
And none of them looked even vaguely bothered that 4 escaped lunatic murderers were somewhere in the vicinity, but they didn't know where.
But this is the thing, is everyone in the town, right, or certainly...
nobody freaked out about it.
Nobody shows... And this is where the weird mood came from.
Yeah.
Was that Schultz himself knows that this guy was like a child.
I know, and he wasn't even vaguely bothered.
Like, this is what I mean. There's a big sequence in the movie...
Which is deeply troubling.
Where a child molester shows up, and we know he's a child molester, it's been established. He shows up at the house while Schultz's daughter is there alone, because her mum and the aunt have been arrested because they were taking part in a protest against nuclear power. And then, of course, the lights go out because, like, the power plant shuts down or something, right? So, like, all this thing about, like, nuclear power and the power going out and all that, that's all in there as well. Like, it's all kind of
that's true.
Woven in.
I had a very weird reaction to that scene. Like, you'd think that the reaction you're supposed to have is women be out protesting stuff, but actually my reaction was, and I suspect sometimes when you have a reaction, like, that's the reaction they want to get from you, you know what I mean? And my reaction was, why the hell are you locking up people just for waving signs, god damn it, when they should be at home looking after their kids? You know what I mean? Like, that was my reaction.
That was my reaction.
Right, but it could have been I'm saying, if I was like, stroke a beard, I'd be like, oh, this is obviously misogynistic, saying that women shouldn't be protesting. But I don't think that was it.
No, I don't think that
but
was
it could have been.
at all.
You see what I'm saying? That you could have had that, you could have read it from the sequence of events.
The difficult thing about talking about this movie is that no one has the reactions in the movie you think they should.
No, that's true.
When the mother is locked up and realises that her daughter, and it's never established how old she is, but let's say 7 or 8. She was about, maybe younger, but 7 or 8, I think. When she finds out that she's going to be alone in the house, she doesn't panic or anything.
No, she doesn't.
In fact, when the guy says, oh, you can take my place, because they're all waiting in line to use the phone at the police station, because they're allowed their one phone call. And when the guy goes, you can use my phone call, step in front and go use my phone call, she goes, oh, are you sure? I mean, like, if it was...
Yeah, if it was like any other movie, they'd be freaking out, they'd be like, this is the thing, this is what we're going to raise attention with.
If it was your mum and she was arrested and you were 7 and sat at home, there's nothing that would stop her from getting to that phone.
But it was quite a neat trick as well, because it had the effect of, like, we're the only ones worrying about it. Yeah.
Right,
you know what I mean? Which is quite cool.
And then there was this whole sequence where you literally didn't know what had happened to the daughter.
Yeah, you had no clue. They didn't even talk about it. They even cut to like a separate... The babysitter comes in. There's like a weird thing where the babysitter comes in and the house is empty and you're thinking, oh God, are they waiting for the babysitter? Is the kid dead? What's the babysitter going to find? Babysitter finds nothing except the girl asleep on a bed, but in a weird looking way that you're not completely sure if she's alive or she's dead or what the fuck is going on.
Or has she been molested?
Right.
Like, you have no idea.
No clue.
So it's in your head the whole time.
Right. Meanwhile, the babysitter's out.
But she knows. She makes a phone call.
And then,
to get her
then it
boyfriend
cuts
over.
to another character who comes in, and
The
again,
boyfriend.
the house is empty, and the babysitter's closed around. And then you go, oh God, what's the boyfriend going to find? And it's so weird because it's like now whatever happened to the little girl is like now like behind what's happened to the babysitter.
Right.
Is he going to find both or one of them, or what the hell's going to happen?
And her
then,
clothes are strewn about, and the music's on.
And I
so
thought
you think
the next thing he's going to find is a leg or a hat. You know, there's going to
Right.
trousers, bra, shirt, ear. Like that's what I thought the natural progression was going to be.
Right. But no, that's a flip, a fake out or whatever as well. You find her on the bed. So then they start like this sex scene. Halfway through, she thinks she hears a noise. She's actually quite panicked about that.
Genuinely panicked in a kind of a realistic way, I thought.
Right.
And he says something really weird when, to try and get her back in the mood, he says, "Do you want me to recite the Gettysburg Address again?" Like, she can only get in the mood if he recites the Gettysburg Address.
That was so weird.
It was a really strange line, but I quite liked it.
So he goes over to the closet. Nobody in the closet.
Nobody in the closet.
Right.
Right.
As he's coming back to the bed, a hand comes out from under the bed and, like, almost comically pulls him, like, full force under the bed.
Yeah,
like,
he
you
just
see
disappears
him
like that.
lying on the rug by the bed and literally sucked under as if by a supernatural force. Like, there's no way you could add, like, if you did that in reality, like, he would bang his head or something would be moving, or like,
struggling.
there's no way that would ever happen in such a slick motion. And at that point, she's kind of like, Eddie? Like,
all of a sudden you've gone from panic to, oh, I wonder what happened to my boyfriend who just disappeared and got dragged under the bed.
Then, a big knife blade, which we've already seen Martin Landau steal from the hunting shop earlier, starts, like, jabbing up through the mattress, right? So then you start to get all, like, panicked. And we were sat there in the apartment going, just jump off the bed and run for the door. Like, when the knife comes up, right, so he would be under the bed,
stuck there for a long
with
time.
his knife, like, up through the mattress. Once it's up through the mattress, jump over the knife and run out the door, because he can only, even if he chases you, he's chasing you either without his knife or he has to retract the knife and get out. So either way, you can have a few seconds to run for the door and then you can shut the door, right? Which she doesn't do for ages. And you're like, come on now, please. So you're all tense about that, to almost the point where you've forgotten about the daughter.
Right.
Then she runs straight out, like, stuff happens and
Right.
But next, everyone's like, we came home, she's absolutely fine.
Yeah, the daughter's fine.
Yeah.
The babysitter's not here, she must have
At
gone.
one point, Dwight Schultz goes, oh yeah, the guy who molests kids was here, but he was really nice with her, showed her how to make some stuff out of paper.
Is it good?
Oh yeah,
It's
great,
lovely.
delicious,
Fantastic.
thank you.
Thank you very
I'm
much.
still nibbling away. He goes, oh yeah, no, the molester was here, but, like, he didn't do anything. Like, he showed her how to make something out of paper.
Actually,
He was really
she
nice.
said he was very nice.
Yeah.
And the mother's like sort of flipping out, but nowhere near the flipping out that the situation demands. It demands a full scale, like level 9 freak out.
And then they go. Schultz goes, oh yeah, they can't find the babysitter.
I'm sure she's fine.
I'm sure she's fine. I'm sure she's gone off with a boyfriend.
There's
Four
only,
escaped lunatics.
there's only 4 escaped murderers
who've already killed
who've been in this house.
Who've been in this house.
Where the babysitter was but is no longer.
Right.
These events are probably unconnected though. Right? Yeah, another example of what you're saying. Like no one reacts the way you think they will.
So I think that maybe, because there's an interesting thing going on with Dwight Schultz's character, which only kind of struck me in the dining room table scene later on, which is his belief structure is on trial here. Because he's a psychiatrist. He believes that he can either subdue, talk to, rationalize with, or figure out crazy people. Right? He doesn't agree with the wishy-washy tendencies of Donald Pleasance and thinks that there should be more, like, actual locks on the door rather than electronic. I mean, I don't want to go into that.
Just asking to go wrong.
Right. Like, I was like, lock a door maybe? And he was like, well, they're electric locks. So the moment the power goes out, and I'm like, this is New England. The power goes out, like, all the time. I don't really, like, it seemed so ridiculous to put all your money on just electricity working.
Yeah.
Like, have a deadbolt. Have, like, anything. Like, have something whereby we can lock this door so the crazies don't get out, right? Or have it that when the electricity goes out, like, everything shuts rather than everything open.
What I liked is that he's got his... the guy that guards the floor, he's got his electric door that he presses a button and it shuts tight. And he's sitting in his office with Schultz, and a knock comes on the door, and he just opens it, and it's Landau. I'm thinking, well, what's the point in the door if all you need to do when you're a psychotic killer is knock,
Right.
and he'll open the door?
Right.
It was just.
But anyway, let me finish my thought. So, Schultz has got this thing where
Right.
he tries to rationalize with him, and he says, "Look, the doctor's alive. Please call a hospital in Philadelphia." He's got this whole thing that his belief structure is also, as well as his family being in trouble and blah 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 blah. His belief that he can somehow do his
surprisingly.
job.
I'll tell you one thing I like.
And so there's that scene around the dinner table where they start to freak out by noises, and he's like, "Look, if we lose it now, we have a real issue on our hands. Like, we have to try and stay calm. We have to understand that these are just people," or whatever he said. And it's both weird, because normally in a horror movie you expect people to either be the heroes, so they're either standing up and going, "I'll take this guy on," or freak out.
Right.
And he's kind of trying to do neither at this point. So that's interesting, but they could have established it earlier because his reactions seem too mild throughout the movie, and it doesn't really hit me why until later on. His reactions are mild because he thinks, "I can rationalize with these people. This is my training."
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, what I was going to say is one of the things that I liked about his character at the end was he was genuinely... Like, it's obviously that in your normal slasher horror movie, the psychiatrist, the doctor, they're the ones that, except in the case of Loomis, they're the ones that lose it. They're the ones that lose their belief system and they freak out or they run or whatever.
Right.
It's an easy target to take the guy who's being rational and then, take that away from him. Yeah, lovely.
More coffee, maybe?
No, I'll be all right.
More wearables?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's an easy target in the horror movies, the psychiatrist or the doctor who preaches rationality and then freaks out. In this case, he does become selfless and do the things that he's supposed to do.
Right.
He does try and protect his family. As soon as he realises that he's the one that they want for killing the doctor, he tries to reason with them, and when he realises that's not going to work, he decides he's going to go for the car. And there's never any argument about it. There's no
And even when
"Oh,
Palance
don't
shows
go,
up
don't
at the
go."
end, he says, "Please don't kill my family."
Yeah, he keeps
He
saying that.
doesn't quite say, "Kill me instead," but that's the...
But you're right. You're right, and that's interesting. That's an interesting choice as well, because I was
And
expecting
he stood
him.
in front of his daughter the moment Palance came in the kitchen.
Yeah.
He put himself
but I was
between
expecting that
Palance
line.
and
Like,
the
I was sitting there watching the movie, having watched a million of these movies. I was expecting the line, "You can kill me, take me, but leave my family." The
Right.
usual kind of thing, which
Right.
is so obviously usual, it almost loses a little bit of its power. It's a bit of an empty statement.
I
You know
think
what I mean?
maybe this movie was playing with some convention.
I don't think it was, because I think him saying, "Please don't kill my family,"
It's not wholly successful,
actually,
but
when you think about it, no, it's not at all. Because I think I think you're right. I think looking back on it, the last 15, 20 minutes are really good. Like, no question.
Right.
When they're in the house and they're under siege, I'm genuinely freaked out. Like,
and there's some good sequences in it. The whole paedophile visiting the house.
Right, but
genuinely unnerving.
But one of the things about all those sequences where, like, you're really deeply unnerved but nothing actually happens is, unlike the fake outs of, like, "Oh, it's my face in the mirror," or "Oh, it's a cat," when you go, "Oh, I'm expecting..." In this case, it's like really hideous things could have happened, but they didn't.
Right.
But that doesn't mean they're not going to. You know what I mean? Like, just because they chose not to do it this time doesn't mean they're not going to.
It's a good build-up
they're
of tension.
constantly reminding you of how irrational these people are. They don't have a plan. They're
Right.
just whatever's like they're going to be thinking of. So that whole thing of faking you out, actually, over the course of the movie, doesn't like. Have the effect of undercutting like later scares because you're a bit bored. It actually ratchets up the tension by giving your mind a chance to fear what is actually coming. So that last 20 minutes works so well. It's one of these movies where the last 20 minutes works so well because of everything that's happened beforehand, but what happened beforehand wasn't good enough as a movie in itself. Like, it needed something else going on so that it could stand on its own, not just as the leader. There's plenty of those movies where you have to sit through 45 minutes of nothing before you get to the bit you're actually there for.
But this wasn't 45 minutes of nothing.
It wasn't. But it just wasn't quite. It wasn't quite right.
But you see, for me, although I know what you're saying, right? There were a couple of legitimate kills at the beginning, towards the beginning, where we were both like, oh,
Yeah.
where it was genuinely,
Yeah, that's true with the van, the guy in the
when he
van.
breaks the orderly's back, you're pretty much.
But that's the beauty of it. Those
when he
things
slaps
are
the
there.
guy in the face
Yeah,
with the-
because those guys. But then there's that bit.
But let me just say.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
The thing that carries me through the rest of it, which is fairly bloodless, is in particular Landau's performance.
Yeah,
because
he
the
was
odd
really good.
occasional that when he shows up at the door, where the wife answers the door, and he's pretending to be a telegram
That
guy.
was great. That was really
amazing.
creepy.
The bit where he's like laughing out of the window
Really
is
creepy.
insanely creepy. The bit where he was like, "Ah!" like I forget what bit that was, but like at one point he went full.
Yeah, you're right.
Nuts.
It was very creepy.
He was the best thing.
Yeah, he was. He was very creepy.
And Palance is far from playing like. I'd always seen Palance as like the grizzled gunslinger, right? Because that's all he played in all the movies that I'd seen.
Yeah, the guy in the black hat, basically.
Right. And even in City Slickers or Cops and Robertsons, like that's the joke he's playing on. That's the persona he's playing on. He's basically doing Clint Eastwood. And in this, he shows really surprising range.
Yeah, he does.
I don't know why I'm surprised by that. Maybe I need to watch more Palance.
He does a lot of
but-
what's great about it, and maybe we do need to watch more Palance, but he does a lot with his deeply strange, weird skull face. Like he doesn't say that much to them, the psychopath, and then he's just about to leave, and just as he's about to leave, Jack Palance like shouts, "Doctor," whatever his name is, like really, really loudly, and then they turn and they look at him. And then for a minute, he says nothing.
But he
He's
tries to
trying to
settle
say
his-
something. Yeah, he tries to settle his face,
He
settle
tries
his
to settle
emotions.
his anger.
Yeah. No, I don't think it's... I think he's crying out to the doctor for some reason, right? But we don't know what it is. And he is trying to calm himself and settle himself and figure out... But then, clearly, given what we know of the rest of the movie, he's not trying to settle himself. Although what he ends up saying is meant to be friendly but there's all these crazy things going on in his face that we now know is him deciding, right, I know you killed the last doctor, I'm having it, I'm coming after you no matter what it takes,
Right.
you're dead.
Right.
All going on in his head, but I can't let you know that right now because obviously you locked me up, so I better think of something nice to say to put you at your ease. And all these things are happening, and all the time his face doesn't stop moving, and he's tiny, and he's
use
giving
of
it his
his
Palance
hands
skull.
all the time.
Yeah.
Like him going up to the window, because they have, again, with the electric security system, which is just idiotic. And that's what I mean about plot holes, right? Is there's an easy fix to that, which is we'll just put locks on the doors, or whatever it is, right? But they seem to have written it's all controlled by electricity, let's just glaze over it and move on.
I think it's supposed to be. I can only guess, right? But sometimes, especially in a movie like this...
I just realised Phil Collins is playing.
Oh, thank God. Sometimes in a movie like this, your writer or your director or whoever, or in this case, I feel like the writer...
The writer-director is the same guy.
Oh, okay, fine. So there we go. Was more concerned with other things. I think he was concerned with... this whole movie is about, mental illness and mental health and what it is to be mad and the line and all the rest of it. And in quite an interesting way, because as I say, and I want to come back to it in a minute, about what I think was going on with that section of it. But I think he needs a MacGuffin, right? He needs something.
Right, yeah.
That's what he's interested in. So he's interested in getting the lunatics out into the world.
But no, I was
right?
talking about Palance's hands, because he keeps putting his hands up. Incredible hands.
The one thing that the guy says, that the only thing that Pleasance keeps saying is that he's most worried about how the world will affect them. He's less worried about how they're going to affect the world, and more about how the world will affect them. And that's not really alluded to, except in the final shot.
Right.
But I think the electric...
The ending of this movie is deeply weird.
But kind of cool. But the electric locks thing, illustrating this thing about nuclear power. Clearly the guy doesn't like nuclear power.
Right.
And I think it's supposed to be some comment on if you put your faith in nothing but one thing, or nuclear power, or electricity, or technology, or whatever. If you put your faith in one thing, it's going to bite you, or whatever. But that's, I think, the comment there.
The weird thing is, it's a very, very cool movie without necessarily delivering on that all the time.
No, it doesn't. You really have to sit through that first 45 minutes, thinking, I'm kind of creeped out, and it's kind of weird, and I'm sort of compelled by the three of them.
To give them the benefit of the doubt, considering certain sequences weren't in the film, clearly due to them being expensive sequences, I think this is one of those occasions where you're like, I have this budget, where do I put it? Right?
Yeah.
So just like he goes, okay, so I have Palance's name on the marquee, right? But I only have him for 2 days. 2 days or 1 day out of the mental home and 1 day at the New England home, right? So what can I use him for? Where am I best placing him? It feels like that he is making those decisions quite consciously with the budget of the movie. So he's like, okay, we have to show the looting and pillaging, but we can't set the whole movie on the night when everyone is looting and pillaging, because we just don't have the money to take over a town and set fire to it and, have people running around and blah, 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 blah. We don't have money for police cars. We don't have money for extras.
Or the protest, because a protest is you're going to end up with 8 people waving signs. Because in looting, you can have like just 1 or 2 people crossing across the camera, and it looks like
and it
a
can be your
thing.
crew as far as anyone cares.
Right, but protesters, if you get anything less than 100, it's going to look shit.
Right. And then you have to have state, because she says, the state troopers are going to be there and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot there. There's like police cars and whatever. They've got this New England home, which they don't exactly trash, but they break a few windows and they knock a few things over. So there's certain costs there that they have to do, and they'll have to repair certain things when they're doing that. They've got a bunch of cars which are sort of used, not quite wrecked, but utilized quite a lot. So I think it's one of those things where it's like the budget feels very judiciously juggled with. Right. So in other words, okay, we have Pleasance for this bit. Is this all we need Pleasance for? Can we put everything we need Pleasance to do in this bit? You know what I mean? Like how many times? And you saw it as well with the shot of the corridor that was used 3 or 4 times, that Dutch angled shot that he used in the corridor was clearly like one shot they did. Film the guys coming down the corridor.
Yeah, in fact,
that was then edited into 3 different things.
Yeah,
to make it
right at the end, when Palance goes into the club, the shot of the 2 people walking into the club was the same shot that they used before.
And not only that, but when he goes into the club, all the same people, the same music, the same setup, everything is happening, even though technically it's like 2 nights later.
Right.
Because the night that the band are playing, when the lights go out, is like the first night, and then we have another night and day and another night and day before he goes back to the club.
You're quite right.
So, like, I think it's also, I don't know if this is the first time like Shea made a movie like by himself for himself kind of thing, but maybe they only had like a.
If that's the case. Right, as in they've only got a small budget,
right?
And they're not making. You can do 1 or 2 things if you've got a tiny budget, right? And you're making a horror movie. You either hit every fucking trope and cliche that you can with as much gusto as you can,
right?
Because we want to fill up the seats here, and we've only got a little bit of money. So if we're going to make something, we're going to get these people together. Let's do something. But clearly,
there's more of an idea there.
If you're going to get, what is interesting is the reason that Palance, Landau and Pleasance are in this movie is they're all playing really juicy parts.
Right.
Like Pleasance is having fun in a totally different way. He's being this, he's a far out, hippie professor type, while at the same time not
being a little awkward and a little weird.
Yeah, a little weird, a little awkward, but not daft. Like there's a feeling of like that all this airy fairy stuff is tied to something very strong inside him. Like it's all born out of a very deep belief that these people are troubled and need to be rescued, and he's not ever going to budge on that, and it's not like, yeah man, because we're all great, we're all one. It's like we're all people, we're all crazy,
right?
But he gets to have fun, he gets to have a few jokes, and the pipe was probably his idea, and it's like you can get Pleasance on board with that character. Similarly, Landau's like,
right,
Landau's
although weirdly, like Donald Sutherland would have been a much better casting for like the mad hippie, owner of a.
Right, but that's my point. Is that
Pleasance, the reason why Pleasance is such a juicy addition to the cast, I think, is because of the Loomis.
Of course. But that's why. But again, you're playing. playing with the conventions. You're playing against
Right,
type.
right.
If you were making the let's hit the genres, let's hit the tropes, you'd get Sutherland in to be
Right.
that guy, and you'd have him play it up, and there'd be no core to him.
Right.
But Pleasance brings belief, and I know everything that happens in Halloween is like. Doesn't matter how crazy it gets. I know, what it is we're going to have to do now. His character is all about, belief, authority.
Well, that's one of the reasons I love the franchise. I don't love the franchise because of Michael Myers. I love the franchise
Because of Pleasance, right.
And because Pleasance is essentially Helsing to Michael Myers' Dracula at a certain point in that series. And they could have made 50 of those movies, and I would never have got the ball.
But then, so you can get Pleasance on board with that. You can get Landau on board with his troubled character.
Also, the weird thing about Landau is Landau is again someone who tends to play reserved. I mean, Landau tends to be reserved.
Yeah, he totally cuts loose. But it's always his reserve is always he's always vaguely panicked.
Right.
A little bit undersurface, only just holding it together.
Right.
And this is Landau not even trying to hold together, reveling in not holding it together.
Yeah.
And if you're an actor who your shtick is, I'm just about holding it together under the surface.
Right.
To be able to play a character who enjoys not holding it together, who thrills in not holding it together, that would be a really interesting challenge. And for Palance, you go, listen, you don't have many lines, but you are the driving, you are the narrative drive. Everything happens because you want it to happen.
And the nice thing I have to say is that through this discussion, although I brought it up a couple of times, the film must be a decent one because we're not we could have sat here like we did with the previous sort of shocking movies we've seen, where the plot holes or the hairstyles or the clothes or some mad set piece or whatever it is has given us a cause to be a bit flippant about the movie. Neither of us are being flippant about this film at all. There's a lot going on, and I'm actually forgiving it a ton based on its budget, based on when it was made, based on the ending,
based on the ending. Because if you stick with it, unlike movies that start well, there's a lot of horror movies that start well and end badly, and there's a lot of movies that's look, we just need to get the people into the place where the set pieces are going to happen that you've all paid for. But this one, once you get to the end, everything that happens in the end and everything that's satisfying about what happens in the end entirely depends on the setup proceeding, and so you do forgive that an awful lot.
Although I've just had a thought, that whole sequence with them in the panel van, going after the milkman, which is by far the silliest sequence in the movie.
Yeah, but you're right, it does look like the Dream Team.
Is only in the movie so that he can get a hat that looks a bit like a postman's hat and show up at the house later. When he shows up at the house later, Landau wearing that ridiculous hat with, that's the other thing. Landau, Pleasance, and Palance, three of the weirdest looking people to have ever existed. Right. And to have them all in a movie is just hilarious. But to have Landau show up, in this kind of, he's wearing this mortician suit throughout the whole thing, this thick black, preacher suit, I guess, but a thick black suit with the white shirt. And he's just got this cap that he's put on top of his ridiculous hair, which looks like it's trying to escape his face. There's something deeply troubling when he then shows up at the house and he's very still and very centered, very kind of.
But I think
calm.
that's a part of.
Whereas throughout the rest of the movie, he's all giggles and eye rolls, and
it's all about Palance give the role a lot of depth,
right?
And it doesn't even need to come across in on the screen or in the lines or actually what the audience sees. Right. Whereas Palance is about clearly that whole sequence of running over the postman and Landau is this is Palance's plan. Palance has a plan for getting the doctor. And he sees the guy on the bike and says, "That's what we need." He even says something like that.
No, we need the hat.
We need the hat. No, he doesn't say the hat specifically. He says, "That's what we need." And it's unclear as to you mean the postman or the bike
but
or
Landau
what.
says something about the hat. Someone says something about that.
No, Landau gets the hat later.
No, but someone says, that hat, I want that hat. Someone says that.
Oh, it might be. You're right. You're right.
I think it was off screen. I don't think we saw them say
it. You're right. But it was Palance. But he was... So that's Palance's plan, is to get the hat, send Landau up.
We'll find... Well, this is what's hilarious, right? Because they steal the panel van the night before, right? They kill a guy.
What they have done in the meantime...
They've driven around looking for a postman. That's what they've done.
Probably.
Yeah,
you're right.
Because it's not like the next day they go, oh my God, they went on a murder spree. They still only killed 3 people by the time
But
they showed up
it seems to be all about...
And nobody, at any point, like, Pleasance goes, oh, they're going to shut the place down or whatever, like, this has all failed. But
Nobody gets angry with them.
Nobody at any point goes, they killed 3 people.
No, Schultz does, to be fair.
Yeah, in a scene that immediately cuts away.
Yeah, and then later on she goes, I felt a lot of hostility from him. Like, it was his problem for getting angry that their shonky security had essentially led to 3 people being murdered.
I liked how all the actual plot devices were in throwaway scenes no one was paying attention.
Yeah, it was very weird.
But I will definitely watch this again. I got a huge kick.
I have to say,
and I would definitely recommend
what I liked about it the most was the idea that there was the Pleasance's ideas weren't ridiculed or thrown away.
Right.
That in fact, he had reached.
Well, that's because there were no cops, and the few cops there were having dinner.
Yeah, they were like thinking about donuts.
Or buying another.
But they were
pork
all of
pie.
them. Because the child molester turning up and not doing anything to the kids suggests to me that to some degree, Pleasance must have reached him.
Right.
Although I wonder whether, like, Palance's authority, i.e., no, we're going to wait for the plan, although that's never even alluded to. But there's some combination, it seems, of Palance's authority and we have a mission, and Loomis...
Also, Palance doesn't seem repulsed, because earlier in the movie when he's telling Schultz what their deals are, you know, he says very flippantly, like, his deal is molesting little girls. Like, he doesn't go, and I'm against that, or show any remorse, show any pains to that. Because, I mean, you could have had he was repulsed by it. And, like, even when he talks about the fact that Landau is an arsonist who burns down churches with people in them, he goes, you know, he tends to burn down churches. Trouble is, people are in them at the time, or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, he says it more as a joke rather than
No,
as
you're right.
I'm repulsed by
so,
this.
so
it's not like
therefore
he necessarily-
suggests that the only one that he doesn't reach, because even well, we can't talk about that.
From now on, there are spoilers. Yes, I thought you want to know. So I'm telling you, it seemed like the right thing to do. Because from now on in the show, there are spoilers, don't you know? So you better embrace the spoilers or go and watch the film. Yes, embrace the spoilers or go and watch the film. Then listen to the end of the show, because at the end of the show there are spoilers. There are spoilers.
We know. Oh yes, there's a massive twist in the movie, but we're not going to tell you what it is. Watch the film.
Although, unfortunately, the fact that we said there's a twist.
No, that's not going to tell. That's not going to make them. I did not see it coming.
No, I didn't either. And it
did
was
not
really
in
good.
any
He was
way
just bouncing
see it
up. He was bouncing up and down the sofa next to me, going, "I did not see that coming. That's amazing. What a great twist!"
And no, and I tell you why it was a great twist is because the introduction of the character in jail, and this is another thing where they're flouting convention. The introduction of that character, in other words, the big, stocky, big-chinned, he'd be good in a fight character,
Right.
makes sense in the movie.
Yes, it does.
Because you've got the sister who likes him.
Because you
fancies
expect
him.
Schultz to be all, oh no, we should
Weak
try
and
and...
shitty,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
weak and academic, and he's not. Schultz is quite action heavy in terms of like what he's
He
doing.
actually responds
But-
appropriately
Right, he does.
to what's happening.
Yeah, but the introduction of the plaid shirt, muscle-bound guy makes sense because you're like, yes, you need that guy in the siege at the end of the movie. Like, this doesn't seem too much of a stretch to put him in the mix.
Right.
And in fact, to some extent, and the nice flip on it, is that you're settled by his presence, not bothered by it
That's
at
a good
all.
point. That's a very good point.
It's a great magic trick because the movie is going, look over here, look over here, look over here, feel calm, muscle guy is there, he's your hero, right?
Right.
And you totally buy it when, in fact...
Yeah. It was really cool. And there was even a bit, that whole... Because again, if I thought it as an intention there, that whole sequence where the sister sees the zombie in the window is like, oh, she's seeing things. So when it first happens, the thing,
Right.
I thought, she's just seeing something.
Thanks.
Is she seeing something? Are we being faked out again? There's been so many There's been so many fake outs. You're thinking, are we being faked out again? Wife shines the torch on them, and she's doing that and tasting, is this real blood? And then you realise it's really happening. That's when it wasn't even just like a short, sharp, ta-da shock. It was like a, wait, no, could it? Wait, maybe, kind of really dragging it out.
There was
really
a real
nicely.
skill to it.
Yeah, there really was. And it was all about that would be in the writing.
And proper, like, the violence in it is proper gruesome.
Yeah, really gruesome.
And but not gory, just gruesome. Just gruesome. Like them embedding that enormous cleaver into the back of the fat guy, and then like repeatedly hammering into his spine with a baseball bat. Yeah. And then when he finally falls over, you see it's embedded into his back as far as it will go. That was really. And
there was a little girl that when he came charging in, she knelt down and sliced his legs, and he fell over.
She heard him running.
Yeah, there's lots of very cool.
And then the bit where the cop in the hat was harpooned to the tree,
and they just leave him out there.
I just thought it was awesome.
They leave him out there, and the thing is, if they the stand, because he goes, oh no, I should get out there, and then they talk him out of it, and you're thinking, yeah, of course, look, he's harpooned to a tree, it's over for him.
Right.
If you go out there, you will also be dead, and he just leaves him out.
But the ending is so weird but open-ended, and
I think the idea is that
because he's not better, it's not like
he's not better, but I think the idea is that Pleasance was really worried about how the world would affect them, right? As in, the world would be too much for them, it would overwhelm them, and it would drive them to more madness. And Palance finds a place in that world where people deliberately take themselves to that place of madness and horror and being slightly disconnected from reality in order to help cope with the world. So when Palance walks in there, a man who is, as it were, an expert in being insane in order to deal with the world. Like, his only way of dealing with the world is to be insane. Like, that's it. Whatever he is obviously to do with what he's seen and what he's done. Like, he's been in the army, he's been in the war, he was a prisoner of war. So things that have been done to him, things that he's done, things the world has done to him, his only way of dealing with it is to go insane.
Right.
And he goes into that club and they're glorifying that, reveling in it, because it's their only way of dealing with whatever the pressures and madnesses of their lives and the world really are. So when Palance walks in, he's there, he belongs there. Like, he's really doing it, He's really dealing with the insanity of the world by being really insane. And that's why she laughs. And I can't remember what she says to him. Like, you're really doing it, or you're really here, or something like that. And Palance looks happy. He doesn't look like, I'm going to be insane and start murdering people. He looks happy. And if there's one thing we've learned, is like, you can trust Palance's face. Like, he's not, that whole sequence of him spending a minute trying to compose his features to say something that he thinks will be non-threatening. He's not a man that's good at covering up what he's thinking. So I think that's what's going on in the end.
And what's weird about it is, like, just you saying all that instantly makes it a better movie.
Yeah, everything. As soon as...
you're right. There's real intention behind the film, isn't there?
Really, as soon as the police officer gets nailed to the tree, and I keep wanting to say cage because Schultz is so cagey in it, and Schultz doesn't go out there. That was like the first bit of the film where I thought, wow, that's genuinely really interesting. We didn't go out there.
And the fact that when the little girl gives the mother the knife at the end of the movie, instead of, which by the way is preceded by a bunch of people killing people as if it was nothing, which is what happens in slasher movies all the time. Regular schmoes like you and me, take arms against like mad crazy people and like have no problem battering them about or stabbing them, which, even if someone was coming at me, I'd have to think 2 or 3 times before fucking being able to punch someone, let alone stab someone. And there's a really interesting thing that happens to that sequence where they give the mum the knife and they're like and he's strangling the sister and they're like just to do it, like stab him, and she has to like think 2 or 3 times before.
Yeah, she's nervous and she's scared. And then what's cool about it is it's not the thing. She doesn't bring the knife up and stab down.
No.
She doesn't like hit him with something. All she has to do, like it's very little she has to do. She just has to put the knife into his side. That's it.
As an audience
all she has to
member,
do. Yeah,
you're immediately placed in her dilemma.
right. Because it's such a small thing, and then when she does it, he's down. That's it. Because he's not he's got a knife in the stomach, and that's it. He's done.
Normally, in an action movie or a horror movie, people dispatch people or beat people up or stab them, whatever, left, right, and centre.
No, you're right.
Just don't think anything about it.
It's very cool.
So, it's having had a history of this is what happens in slasher movies.
Yeah, agreed.
Because you immediately assume, okay, well, this is what's going to happen, and you're always wrong.
Yeah, it's very, very good. It's just that you have to sit through 45 minutes of where's this going? Like, I don't know where this is going.
No, but there's plenty of enjoyable stuff in
there. Yeah, no, there's stuff in there. But I was on the verge of being bored in the first 5 minutes. No, I wasn't.
The only bit I would take out, apart from maybe the postman bit, although that's at least funny, the one bit I would take out is the jump scare with a spoon.
Yeah, the jump scare with a spoon. But I wonder if that wasn't a joke. In the context of everything else we now know about the movie.
Right. Well, we're hypothesising.
We're hypothesising about the movie. Although I suspect there's enough evidence to back us up.
Right.
Because they were obviously deliberate
We didn't
choices.
watch the commentary or the interview, but I will do that.
Okay, we'll do, because I'd be interested to know. But my guess is that there's too many deliberate choices
right.
that add up to intent.
But her... Also, I have to say, the wife as an actress from the very beginning was really good.
That's true. She had a nice line in Believable Hysteria.
No. I don't just mean that. I mean, there was a really interesting bit where the sister shows up, and the sister's immediately babbling about, we're going to go see this band and this music, and I'm really into music now, and blah, 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 blah. And the mum's like, can we just go inside? Like that. And then the sister goes, I'm sorry, I was just excited. And then the actress went, no, it's fine, let's just go inside and, like, be excited. The way she did that was so realistic and believable, like the line delivery, it didn't seem stilted, it didn't seem like an act, it seemed like genuine, and I actually really liked that. I thought she was actually a really good
when we talk about it, I'd like to, because I wonder if one of the reasons I was having trouble with it for those 45 minutes is because I was a little bit adrift, there weren't tropes and things to make me go, okay, well, this is where we're going,
right, and
there wasn't enough that I was like sucked into this crazy new world. It was I don't quite know what's going on. But you're right, they were
things very
like that
brave though to let some sequences just play.
Yeah.
But then they had to cut other sequences for time and for money.
Yeah. It was once you get to the end of the movie, you think, I'm really glad I watched that movie because there was a lot going on there. And I wanted us, as soon as it was over, I said, let's not talk about it.
Right.
At all, because I wanted us to sit down and talk about it over the while we were recording it, because I didn't think there was a lot of. Remember that hilarious bit where the thing, was like, if we're going to get anything out of this, it's going to be you and me sitting down and figuring out, did we like that one?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because at the end of it, it was like, I think I really liked that, but I'm not sure. Because for so long, I didn't think I did.
Your reaction to the movie takes place mainly in the brain.
Yeah.
Like, you're always trying to, like, figure it out. So, like, with the child molester sequence, or with the sequence with the girl on the bed, or whatever the sequence was, what it was playing into was, like, more so than almost any other slasher I've seen, was, like, playing into your fears, what you would do, blah, 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 blah. I can't tell you the last time I watched a horror movie and had that, like, run to the door reaction.
Yeah.
A lot of people talk about watching horror movies, and when the woman runs upstairs to the attic or runs downstairs to the basement, people are shouting at the screen, like, just run out the front door. I never do that. Like, I never get that involved. Like, I tend to watch horror movies a bit like action movies, that they're kind of cathartic. They're kind of like, just, they're fun to watch. There's a lot of dozy stuff going to happen. There's going to be some great set pieces. Bosh some sound, like good music on the soundtrack, and away we go. This was one of the first movies in a long time that I was genuinely like, oh man, like I don't know what they're going to show me here. Like I don't know, because we didn't know how violent it was going to be, and then he like broke the orderly's back, and you saw like his spine like snap, and then you sort of like crumpled up.
Yeah,
on the
the crumpled up body was.
And it wasn't gore, but you were like.
It was very troubling. There was a lot of things happening. Like
then,
even though I'm like bits of it are boring, bits of it are also really troubling.
Right.
And no matter how like boring the boring bits are, that troubling bit is still running underneath them because obviously that's going to happen again, only much worse.
Right.
It's only going to get worse as the movie goes on.
But it was. I tell you why it's successful for me, and I've been saying this a lot lately. Because I'm realizing again what it is I love about well-crafted films, and that is tension and suspense. Because so many horror movies now are boom, jump scare, boom, jump scare, boom, and you're like, like the cat or the person coming in with a spoon or whatever.
Oh, are you in a bathroom with a mirrored cabinet? What's going to happen when you shut the door?
Yeah, right. And I'm sick and tired of that because that's not. Like, that's just a House of Horrors thing. That's just like sit on a go-kart and be pushed around until you go past the thing.
Which
that
has its place. It's just, you're right. There's something. But something to be said for like.
And I've said this on several shows recently. But I watched Wrath of Khan again recently, and I'm not going to labour the point. But the genius of Wrath of Khan is not in the special effects. It's not in the whiz-bangery. It's in the tension that is built up over that last 45 minutes of the movie, using just the script and the performances of Shatner and Montalban. Because once they enter the electrical field at the end, it's a slow-moving game of cat and mouse. It's a chess game. It's like fire only when we can see him for the fraction of a second. Like it's completely and utterly like you're at the mercy of it. But the only reason that's tense is not because, I mean, yes, the music helps and all the rest of it, and the direction, whatever. But the reason why that's tense is because the script up until that point has been so, like, goddamn good and so interesting and so, like, on point, and you're so on the edge of your seat that everything that's happening, like, I've seen that movie 100 times, and the emotional beats, the tense beats, everything still hit. And this was one of the first horror movies that I've sat down and watched in a long time. Because I was invested in the
that's fair.
In the scenario.
I was worried about what was going to happen. Because they were very unpredictable characters. What was so cool
and not
about...
necessarily because they'd set up the quote-unquote normals so well, but because they'd set up the threat of...
because they were so... Because you didn't know what their agenda was. You couldn't. What was great was that you couldn't understand their agenda either. It wasn't like a Michael Myers. Oh well, he's just a monster. He just kills. So it's like, okay, well, there's no out-thinking this guy. There's no like Freddy. Oh well, he was killed, so now he's going after Joe. It's just like a revenge thing. This is like, well, like there's none of that Stephen King thing of, oh well, there's a mythology here,
or the real monster is man, or whatever.
No, but like take Stephen King horror movies for example. Stephen King horror movies are all about like creating a mythology for like American horror. Like he's basically saying, well, America's got a history, so let's give it a history. Let's give it a mythology. So all the monsters have to follow a mythology. So you defeat the monster by you discover what the mythology is. You follow the mythology. Monster defeated. End. But in this one, it's like their plan is mad. Like, it's a mad, like, oh, well, you killed the doctor, so we're going to kill you. And it's like, well, there's no reasoning with that. Like, there's a bit where he goes, even if I could reason with them, they'll be able to explain it away. Like, even if they saw his face or spoke to him on the phone, they'd be able to explain that away. Because it's all about keeping their fantasy intact.
Right.
So it's a really scary thing to be a victim of, because like, well, there's nothing you can do about it. You can't talk them out of it, or like, oh well, as long as I rub my elbow up and down its back 3 times while chanting whoa, then and then it'll be sucked back into the portal from whence it came.
Right.
There's none of that stuff. It's like, well, how do you deal with it? And it's not like, oh well, he's a monster, so we're all going to die except for one character who's just about going to get away at the end. Like, so the audience feels safe in that because we know what's going to happen. But this is like, we don't know what they're going to do. We don't know what the collateral damage is going to be. It's already been pretty significant, so we don't know where it's going to go or what they're going to do, and that's genuinely scary when you don't know what characters and movies are going to do, which is very fucking rare these days.
Right.
I can't think of the last time I watched a movie where I didn't have a pretty good inkling of what the characters were going to do.
Right.
And this one I had no idea.
Which put us on edge, which made us tense, which, and therefore it might not play as well a second time. You know what I mean?
It might, but equally it might play better because it might.
Well, except that whole sequence where we didn't know if we were going to see something wrong, we would now know we're not going to see.
No, that's true. But on the other hand, I think that the parts of it that bored us, or at least bored me, or nearly bored me, I don't think they would a second time. So there might be. You could be right. It might not get better or be any good the second time around, but I think it might be. But I really enjoyed it.
Right,
And
which is where, funny enough, the other way round, right, because it plays on your expectations, this movie, the first time you watch it, it's awesome because it's playing on all the expectations you've been built up having watched horror movies for years. And not in an ironic, let's point this out way like Scream, but just in a way where we've written it into the script that these are it's not a supernatural thing, it's all the things we've been talking about. Anyway, the reason why Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, blah, 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 have the rewatchability factor is because it's not... you already understand that your expectations are going to be met.
Right.
So you're watching it in the same way that you want to eat a candy bar or a chocolate bar or whatever because you're like, well, I like Milky Way, so I'm going to buy Milky Way and I'm going to eat it. I like Halloween, so I'm going to sit down and watch it. And yeah, I'll be entertained because it's entertaining. But I'm, like I say, when I watch Halloween now, which scared me the first 6 times I watched it, Halloween was like one of the scariest movies I've ever seen. It's nice, brooding tension. There's like plenty of sequences where you don't know what's going to happen, and there's some great chase stuff. And you know, Michael Myers is genuinely terrifying in the wake up and the direct and everything else. Now when I watch it, I'm watching it, like I say, for Loomis. I'm watching it for Jamie Lee Curtis's performance. I'm watching it for the cinematography. Like, I'm getting entertained by other things. I'm not sure that those things, apart from maybe like Landau's performance or like Palance's
I see what you're
performance,
saying, yeah.
there isn't necessarily the reason to revisit this in the same way and get the same thrills out of it. Now, I'll revisit it again for the performances, but I wonder if the twist, the tension, any of those things that we're so enamored
that's
now
true.
would really play.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying actually is that maybe if I agree that the things that happened in the second part of the movie would suffer from, well, not suffer, but wouldn't be as good on a rewatch, but I'd be curious to see if what happened in the first half of the movie would be better knowing what's coming, because I suspect maybe it would, but much more than that I don't know.
There's still plenty to entertain for a rewatch, but it would never ever, it'll never be as good as it was tonight.
No, that's true. So we should just enjoy that.
Yeah, I am enjoying it.
Thank you very much
For joining us in the After Movie Diner.
Thanks, man.
Drifting typewriter starts on the cobbles. The ladies all gossip at the caravan. Handkerchiefs are waving and bells in the air. Bustling market with meats in a can. Well, alright. Well, alright. Doth of the cap to the undertaker. Bristling mustaches on bended knee. Cafe tables filled with berets. And here we're not very far from the sea. Well, alright. Well, alright. I don't think you've got a single clue. Nobody asks about you. And if they do, I say who. Well, you really can't say that you've got it made till your shirt sleeves are rolled and you own your very own spade. And you've dug up the garden and winked at the sun. Until then, we're all just on the run. Hurdy-gurdy one on one too many ales. The organ grinder invested wisely, and And the monkey went traveling to the south of France. I'm so glad you're staying so close beside me. Dirty cups in the sink in their own terrain. Ben man got a tip on the horses. Startle news anchor by late breaking events. This teacher's teaching one too many courses. Well, alright, I said alright. Oh yeah. Well, I don't think it's the right way to go. This path is littered with memories and way too slow. You really can't say that you got it right till it feels like you're home in the middle of the night. And you open the curtains and wink at the sun. Until then, we're all just having fun. Well, alright.